Hey guys, my name is Ryan, and we're back again with another Spirit Island video. Welcome to the 7th installment of the ACES series. This is a series of videos designed to give the core principles necessary to take on every level 6 adversary for the very first time. Today, we're looking at my favorite adversary of them all, Scotland. Scotland was originally released in Promo Pack 2, which was a Kickstarter bonus for Jagged Earth. These days, it has been combined with Promo Pack 1 in a product called Feather and Flame. I have said before that I think Scotland is one of the best adversaries to try new spirits on. It has clear strengths and few complex rules to distract you from the new spirit. But that is assuming that you're playing at level 5 or below. Scotland is easily the adversary that is the most different, going from level 5 to level 6. From levels 1 to 5, everything cares about the coast. There's an Explore, Build, and Ravage modifier to the coast on levels 1, 3, and 5 respectively. The Lost condition also tracks the status of the coast, and then the Escalation, it worked kind of differently in multiplayer, but it calculates its effect based on the status of the coast. So everything is all about the coast at levels 1 through 5. Even the setup changes from levels 2 and 4 are pretty much centered around the coast. The only extra invader that we get is on land number 2, which is that middle coastal land, and the invader deck does get rearranged a bunch, but the big notable thing is that the coastal card gets set at a specific location. So it really is a single track minded adversary. But that's levels 1 through 5. Level 6 goes in a completely opposite direction. It says, Experts fuel inward growth. After the Ravage step, add a town to each inland land that matches a Ravage card and is within one range of a building. If we're playing at any level below 6, it can be fairly easy to obliterate the completely generic inlands and then snowball the game off of that pocket. But this level 6 rule make the inlands go from generic and boring to extremely dangerous and threatening all by itself. As a fun historical aside, a couple years ago, people were experimenting with ways to make Sweden harder to get it up to a level 10 adversary. And one of the ideas was to create a 7th rule, which gave Sweden something very similar to Scotland 6. Sweden is notoriously fragile, and this new rule makes the adversary much more challenging. I don't think people play it that much these days, since it isn't official, there's nothing physical for it, and so it just got lost to time as memories fade. But I think I'll do a video with that soon. Anyways, with the inclusion of Scotland 6, there's two completely different play patterns that happen at the same time, and they pull your attention in two different directions. On one hand, we have the extremely dangerous coast, which can cause an instant loss via city count, or rapidly blight out because of Scotland 5 adding an extra blight to the ocean every single time that we take a coastal blight. So the coasts are going to put pressure on us immediately. But on the other hand, the inland lands are much less dangerous at first, since they start completely generic, they have no extra buildings, they have no buffs to any invader actions. It's pretty easy to just let it go and not think about it too hard. But if we look away for too long, all the free town additions add up super fast, and all of a sudden we have a 30 damage Ravage coming down the pipeline. To handle everything, we must be able to jump on every little coastal town before it has a chance to build, while also growing huge to topple the massive piles of buildings inland. What really makes Scotland 6 tick is the Invader deck, as arranged by Scotland 4. Having this Stage 3 card right in the middle of all of the Stage 2 cards creates so many opportunities for back-to-back inlands. Scotland 6 is at its most deadly in these back-to-back situations, since it only applies to inland lands. If there was no modifications on the Invader deck, there would only be opportunities for back-to-backs right here, going from Stage 1 to Stage 2, and then here, going from Stage 2 to Stage 3, and then of course, naturally, Stage 3 is nothing but back-to-backs. But in the early game, there would kind of just be this one spot. This wouldn't show up until pretty late in the game. However, this Stage 3 here creates a great opportunity for an early back-to-back. In this situation, we can see that we have a jungles in the Stage 2, and then jungle wetlands would be the Stage 3. So we do get that back-to-back situation. It's a very high chance of that happening. So why is it deadly? Okay, so let's just say that this was the first time that jungles came up. Okay, yeah. Let's say that there is no jungles in stage 1, and so it would explore, it would build. And let's say we get 2 Dahan in there and defend it, and it would full clear. Even if we had the normal back-to-back, it would come in with the second explore, and the 2 Dahan would full clear this land. And against any other adversary, this would be fantastic. We would get a free turn. We don't need to invest any actions into this land. But with Scotland, after this stage 2 Ravage, it'll add a town here, and then it'll immediately build, adding a city here. And so, even though we full cleared the land, the second Ravage actually hits harder than the first Ravage does. This is a 5 damage Ravage right here, whereas this was a 4 damage Ravage. Now imagine if we didn't full clear this, then the stage 3 Ravage would be even worse. And so it builds up insanely fast. It can be incredibly deadly. Yeah, this could go, this would be like a 9 damage Ravage if we just let it fly for the first time. And 9 damage Ravage is a ton to handle this early in the game. The stage 3 back-to-back is particularly deadly since it goes immediately before the coastal card. So while this situation is playing out here and we are distracted by the very large Ravage, that's right when they're going to start exploring the coast, and if we don't react to the coast immediately, we just lose. So it forces us to basically ignore these inlands in order to prepare for Scotland's deadliest moment. Creates a tough choice. We know the coastal card is coming, we know exactly where it is, and so it behooves us to prepare for it. But if we overinvest into one section of the board, we're going to underinvest in the other. And there's that duality. And that's really what the danger and the strength of Scotland is we get our attention pulled here for so long because things are getting bigger and bigger and scarier. But then all of a sudden, don't blink, because the coast is going to be incredibly dangerous as well. It takes a lot less to lose because of the coast. And so we're required to handle smaller problems that exist here. But if we invest too many actions, then like I was saying, this inland just gets overwhelming. Up until this moment in the game, for all of these other stage 1 and stage 2 cards, we're only getting 1 inland town added every single turn because of Scotland 6. And then here in this specific situation, we get 3 towns added. That's a very dramatic jump. But the most dramatic in the game would be on board D, if you were to have your early stage 3 be the Sands Mountains card, since there is now actually 4 lands that are going to add towns inland, and there's no crossover with the coastal card that would come immediately after. Now, that is just insane and ridiculous, and it's one of the reasons, among others, why board D is not recommended when you're playing in Scotland, at least not in solo. In multiplayer, you can mitigate the downsides of it, but definitely in solo, board D is weird. So we got these huge inlands, terrifying coastal lands. What are we supposed to do against such a foe? Here are your 3 keys to victory for beating Scotland 6. First, scaling. Scotland has the most fear cards in the game. 16 fear cards is a ton to burn through. But even more impactful is that there are 6 cards at terror level 1. While we may get more total fear cards earned over the course of the game, adding to the total amount of free power resolved, delaying the much more powerful stage 2 cards means that we can't be as reliant on them to help us through the early game. Once we add in the inland resilience from Scotland 6, suddenly it's nearly impossible to have a really fast game, and we can't leverage tools like pockets to gain an advantage. Games against Scotland 6 are dramatically longer than those against Scotland 5, so we must plan for it. Much digital ink has been spilled over the topic of scaling, but the core idea is that we are willing to take small, short-term losses on the board in order to grow in power faster and become much stronger in the late game. Scotland is very similar to England on how we must approach the game. Since we know the game will go longer and invaders will build up much more, we should adjust our build from the start to make sure that we have the long-term strength necessary to win. To promote scaling, we should grow a little extra across top track than we normally would early to increase our energy income. And since we're going to be forced into major powers anyways to beat down those massive inland stacks late game, I like to take that major power a little bit earlier so we can anchor our decisions as we grow and we might even get some value using a few times early as well. The natural trade-off is that by having fewer card plays, we are weaker in the early game, and the board becomes a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Since we expected there to be a bigger board, we gained more energy and took less actions, which is what causes a bigger board. The difference here is that to go full miners and not get crushed under the weight of Scotland 6, we had to completely 100% obliterate the inlands. And that's not something that can be done reliably. So it's not a strategy that I can endorse here. If you're watching this video and playing at any level before 6, this key may not apply. It's the level 6 rule which forces scaling to be necessary. Now, it still may be worth doing as an exercise on how to handle the coast with a different build, so that when you do jump over to level 6, you're all primed and ready to go with that different mindset on how to approach your spirit. Key 2. Manage the coast. While the new level 6 rule is shiny and scary, the meat of the adversary is still centered on the coast. All of the stuff that got us ahead at levels 1 through 5 is still essential here. If anything, the new inland resilience is simply a distraction. All that scaling voodoo magic doesn't matter if we just lose on the coast anyways. Aside from turn 1, coastal lands explore as towns, and then we lose when all 3 get a city. And since it does explore as a town, it only takes 1 build action to get there. So we need to jump on it immediately. We don't have time to doodle around and kind of kick the can down the road while we eventually get around to stopping the coastal cities. Let's take a look at the C1 jungle with this invader deck here. So we want to prevent us from getting that 3 city loss condition. So when the jungle initially explores, we drop a town in, and we want to prevent there from being a city, so we're going to kill that in the slow phase. Okay, that is 1 action spent. Now, we're solved on the land, right? We're all protected? No, of course not. Scotland 3 says that as long as there is an adjacent city, coastal lands still do build actions. So when this jungle is in the build slot, it will still build a town, and that's enough damage to do some blight. Now, let's say that it wasn't the jungle wetlands, let's say it was, sands, mountains, or whatever. It would be a 2 damage ravage, and we would have to either kill this town or defend it in order to protect ourselves. So that means that is a second action that we would need to invest in the land in order to stay safe. But it is a jungle wetlands, which means that when it explores, it'll come in with another town. So had we killed this town, after it builds, we kill that town, then it explores as a town anyways, we feel like we really haven't accomplished anything. We would have to invest a third action across 3 turns, killing a town over and over and over again. That's a lot to invest into a single land. And because of the potential for all of these back-to-backs in a row, I'd strongly recommend killing the initial town to deny the city, but then from there, see if you can do some Dahan and defend in the coastal land, because it can take just an explore action to make the land fully ready to blight out. I think it's important to draw attention to that mathematical breakpoint. So in this land, here we have what would happen in the case of this back-to-back, where you get the Scotland 6 trigger into a build for a 5 damage ravage. Your standard 2 Dahan does not full clear this land. Whereas over here in land number 1, let's say we picked off the initial town, and then we got the build and the explore. Well, if we bring a Dahan in and defend this, this does full clear the land. That 1 HP, that 1 damage difference makes a huge difference here. And that's why I feel like Dahan and defend is a little bit more effective on the coastal lands than it is inland. With the coastal lands, since we want to keep them small, 2 Dahan is generally sufficient to keep the lands manageable. Whereas inlands, because they get so big, this is just 1 build action here. 1 build action already forces a 3rd Dahan to show up, and that's just a lot of resources to invest into a single land. Also, if we set up Dahan and defend in this lower part of the game, then we're all primed and ready to go by the time the coastal card comes around, so this action here will pay dividends. And so on that note, key 3 is timing the coastal card. Scotland's Invader deck is pretty unusual since it sets a specific card in a specific spot. Giving known information to the player is a huge boon to the spirits. And in fact, right after the 100% known coastal card, there's a 50% known stage 2. Since there are 5 total stage 2 cards, there's 1 for each terrain type and coastal, we can see 3 of them here. So there's a 50% chance of this being wetlands or mountains. And we can see in this example, it happens to be in mountains. So for these 2 turns, we have 100% knowledge of this guy, and then 50% knowledge here. In general, when you are playing, like let's say there's just a completely unmodified invader deck, as you get towards the end of each stage, the percent of knowledge that the players have goes up. And so if we're able to leverage that knowledge to gain an advantage, the advantage of the spirit goes up as you get towards the tail end of stage 1 and the tail end of stage 2. Being able to extend that benefit from a 1 turn to a 2 turn benefit to the spirits is absolutely insane. Now, I have heard some people say that the stage 3 card is also a 50-50 because there's 50% chance of jungles, 50% chance of wetlands, 50% sands, 50% mountains. But I don't think of this as being too useful to the spirits. It's not so much that we know that it is going to be mountains, but we know that it is not going to be jungles or sands. And so let's say that we're playing a beast spirit and we're not really sure where we want to put our beast. Knowing that we don't have it in the jungles, if we just get like a free beast movement, we can just kind of toss it out here. 50% chance of that benefiting us versus a 0% chance if it was in a land that's already been activated. Eliminating stuff, I think, is actually more useful than knowing what could be. This first stage 3 card eliminates nothing, and so we really don't gain an advantage for that reason. But let's talk about these timings. When are these invader cards going to show up? So this first one of the game, it's going to explore on turn 0, okay, build on turn 1, and ravage on turn 2. And then everything is going to go up by 1 step each card. Okay, so this explores on 1, explores on 2, 3, 4. This means that this will explore on turn 5, build on turn 6, and ravage on turn 7. And then similarly, this card here is going to explore on 6, build on 7, and ravage on 8. Now, people have taken a lot of data and figured out how long games take, and most games take about 7 turns to complete. Scotland, of course, is going to take much longer because it's such a huge fear deck, but by 7 turns, we are going to be an insanely strong spirit. We are going to be growing tons, gaining lots of new cards. We should be in a very, very strong position. So we have a moment here where for 2 turns, we have near perfect information and we are approaching our peak strength of the game. This is going to be the turning point of the game. Right here is where we're going to have the largest relative advantage of the spirit over the adversary because of all the benefits that come from knowing and planning ahead. And let's focus on this coastal card for one more turn. We know exactly when it's going to come. So as I mentioned before, we could set up all of our Dahan, get our defend powers going, so that way we can, leverage those Dahan and counterattack, clear the whole coast. That can be a huge swing in our favor. But also, the biggest tool that Scotland has, the Scotland 6 rule, which lets them get so huge, well, there's no inland lands on the coastal card, right? So it doesn't trigger. So in this moment, we can, crush them on the Ravage, and we don't get any pressure from that Scotland 6. So it is just a beautiful turn for us. Generally, we want to set ourselves up on this coastal card, like right here on the turn 6, turn 7 moment. That's when we want to gain our huge advantage, and the rest of the game, we're just going to be cleaning up and figuring out how we're going to close the game out. But from here is when the game is either won or lost. If we can't handle the coastal card, the game is lost, we're done, there's no hope for us coming back. But if we do crush it here, we should maybe even have some extra actions that we can basically use for free on the inlands when the inlands are doing absolutely nothing. That should slingshot us ahead and give us a great closeout in the back half of the game. As with all of the videos in this series, I will recommend a low or moderate complexity spirit to play, nominating them as my ace. I think every spirit is very playable into Scotland though, so you can't go wrong with whatever you just love to play. I have my own preferred attacking playstyle, so me personally, I like spirits like Rising Heat of Stone and Sand, Emberide Behemoth, Thunder Speaker, and Vengeance as a Burning Plague. Today's ace is none of those spirits though. They're either a high complexity spirit or a spirit that I've already featured in other videos in the series, and I want to present as much variety as possible. I decided to pick someone who follows all of the principles that we've been discussing, but in a slightly unique way. And I'm talking about Fathomless Mud of the Swamp. An interesting feature of Scotland is that it's really good at making cities. Since the coast explores towns, they build cities immediately, and then the inlands get those free towns added from Scotland 6, so they also jump straight to cities. Since Scotland readily builds more cities, Mud's special rule can maximize its potential value. In addition, the lost condition has been turned off, since one sacred site on the coast will make it impossible for cities to rule the whole coastland. As a 1-2-1 spirit, meaning that it adds 1 presence with growth 1, 2 presence with growth 2, and 1 presence with growth 3, we can always clear all of our presence before the game end, even if we find ourselves reclaiming a bunch. This means that we will be able to scale up, we will be able to grow. We're not going to get stuck in some reclaim loop and then find ourselves not being strong enough by the game end. Of course, we do need to gain new powers over the course of the game, and we do have a unique power, which, while very cost inefficient, it does let us still grow in strength, gaining new cards. We have paths to get out of a bad reclaim loop. So we've neutralized the threats with all of our sacred sites, and we're growing, we're gaining energy, we're gaining card plays. Once we get ourselves all the way to the top, we can gain ourselves up to 7 energy a turn, with 5 across the top track and 2 on growth 3. That's going to cover all but 3 majors in the whole game. That literally means that it's impossible for us to gain a major and then not be able to afford it. Combined with the 4 free elements on our track, the cleanup should be a cakewalk. As far as board selection goes, you generally don't want to play on board D against Scotland. If the second card in the Invader deck, which explores on turn 1, is Wetlands, you'll get towns on 1 and 3, and then on turn 2, you just lose in the build phase, since you start with the city here, you build a city here, and boom, that's game, lost condition. Now, that doesn't actually happen with Mud, since we start with the Sacred Site in land number 1. Even if that very deadly situation happens, we are going to be protected. And this does start with really nice adjacencies, so we have access to basically everything right from the start of the game. So we're fine playing board D as long as we're playing specifically Mud. The only board that I don't like specifically as Mud is board F. And that's just because we just start in an awkward location with bad adjacencies, and the Dahan setup is kind of awkward as well. We want to have quick access to all of the different kinds of lands, so that way no matter what comes up, we can leverage our fantastic special rule. So when we go to our game, I'm just going to knock board F and D out of the pool, and we're just going to randomize and go from there. Let's see how the little otter can do. We get board B. All right. Starting off with the jungles. It's always nice when the starting card matches one of the coastal lands because it will come in as an explorer, and it just feels good, but can't all be winners. For this first turn, we could drop a Sacred Site here into land number 4, and then clear it either with our Innate or with a Foul Vapors and Fetid Muck. For land number 8 up here, we could choose to just defend it with the Intractable Thickets and Thorns, or we could draft into a solution. So I'm going to do a double growth, going top-bottom, to do Foul Vapors plus the Open Shifting Waterways. This will give us the first tier of our Innate, and that just gives us tons of flexibility to do whatever is needed. Nothing in the fast. Skip the first event of the game. Cultural assimilation is a very nice one to skip. And we're going to build in the jungles and exploring the sands. All right. So we can use this foul vapors to push these guys out. We could use like the open shifting waterways or our innate to clear this. But then what to do with the third power? We could just use our innate to go this way just to get our presence out here for range and targeting, and then we can double grow into the 3, so that way we can intractable thickets. Or sorry, well, we can use our special rule here in the 3. So we'll do that. We'll go fear, and let's send you up this way. Here is a fear and a damage, and then over here is a fear and an irrelevant damage. Next turn, if we want to do this sacred site here, we would need to double grow, playing Exaltation and Intractable Thickets. Going for 3 energy. Since that this card functionally costs 1 energy. Okay, fast phase, we'll get a fear and a defense. Event. Rising interest in the island. We could get bonus damage if we get some air down, and we start with just 1 air card. Now this card is not insane in this matchup. Their explorers are a lot less relevant, so I am open to forgetting it, but it is a 0 cost card with pretty good elements. But the other option is just untenable. So we are going to forget you. Return the top fear card to the box. Bonus damage is irrelevant. And then we get to add a beast and a fear and a wilds. Now, the wilds is at its greatest value on the coast. Since if we were to put it here, it's going to get a town anyways, and so we don't really get to solve anything with that explorer. All we do is prevent an explorer from showing up, whereas here we prevent a whole town from showing up. And then our sacred site will mean that it's only an explorer is going to ravage. Adding a wilds here will actually solve everything, assuming that we can effectively handle it right now. And isolation is a perfect card for that. So remove an invader or an explorer town where it's the only invader. So that's beautiful. Ravage. Okay, Scotland 6. Build and exploring the wetlands. Having to add a town to a land with the fewest towns. Is it towns or buildings? Fewest towns. So we could go to the 2. Obviously, we're not going to. That would be quite silly. But we'll go right here. This is fantastic for us. We don't have to do anything in order to solve the sands. So we can focus on just scaling up and having a good time. We can pay an energy and gain a minor. And that minor will be, let's see, Thriving Choke Fungus is cool. It doesn't help us out too much on the coast. Dark and Tanglewoods doesn't solve anything for us. Like calls to like. So I could do with, okay, so what I could do, right, is I could have a sacred site here, and then I could like calls to like targeting the 6, gathering the explorer town out of the 1, and then since, you know, back-to-back 2s, we can't actually get a back-to-back. Though that'll full solve the 1. I don't need to do anything to solve that land. And we'll take a blight in the 6, and, you know, we'll be very sad and we'll cry a little bit. But that will save us 2 blight right now, and that would allow us, we could actually just gain a major this turn. We don't have to reclaim or nothing. So I think like calls to like is going to be the pick. And then, yeah, we have here, so we can go for a fear. Coming over here, getting a ping, whatever. Time passes. Now, we have this Exaltation, which is a card that, not good. It's a great card to forget for a major, so I'm going to do that right now. And, ooh, Ravaged Undergrowth. If we take this water here, we can threshold it immediately. Now, it it's good here, right? If we get the jungles, it actually is beautiful right here. But even without it, adding wilds, we get to add a wilds and then push the wilds. So we can send the wilds up here to land number 1, right? And we're also going to clear it with the light calls to like. And that will just be beautiful defense on the coast. Same exact thing's going to happen where it'll stop the explorer, which will, whether it's a stage 3 or coastal, the build will just turn into an explorer. It'll be solved. It'll be all good and fine. Yeah, we're very happy to take that card. The other cards, just for clarity's sake, this one is, it doesn't produce any fear. And that's the kind of thing we need against Scotland, right? We need to do fear-producing cards. Winning the board isn't good enough. We need to actually, push the invader deck. So I'm not a huge fan of it. Angry Bears is completely off element. And the effect is, the effect's great if you are catered for it, but we're not in any capacity. We have no beast production. We have no elements for it. It's just awkward. And then Earthquakes, I think, is just too expensive for what we want to do. I think Ravage Undergrowth does a little bit less damage, but also half the price. It's also playable this turn, whereas Ravage Earthquake is not playable this turn, being only at 5 energy. So Fast Phase. Also we get to add a presence. We could add a presence here just to deny a city from existing. But I'm going to go into the Dahan land just so that way, because the Dahan events go up to 4 Dahan in lands with your presence, so this means that anything is viable. Healthy Island. Explorers have +1 health. Oh no. Beasts generate fear or move. We know this land is going to be stacked up for a long time. Actually, let's go to the 7. And Inland Land gets an extra Dahan. Okay. Ravage. Scotland 6. Build. Exploring the mountains. Adding a town, we are forced to go into the 3. Alright, like calls to like. So we get to gather an explorer and town into this land. And then we can do 3 damage. Produce an extra fear. Turn this into a wilds. Push the wilds. And then the threshold also lets us push another wilds. Add another wilds. We can then push it, and then so we can come here. And then for every land with wilds adjacent, we can push a town or explorer. So we can go like this and like this. Plan here is we're probably going to take a Blight, and then we can use Ravage Undergrowth eventually. The Blight removal is probably one of the absolute best tools for scaling up. Because let's say that this isn't a wetlands. Okay, well then the next time that this could possibly ravage again would be 3 turns later. And we can just let the Blight sit there that whole time. And then after this explores, we see what the problem is. Or even after it explores, the next turn when we're on like here, like 2 cards away from the end of the whole game, then we remove the Blight in the slow phase after this build. And we have no problems to worry about. We're Blight neutral in the land. That is insane. Blight removal is absolutely nuts for scaling up. So getting it on a cheap card, it's going to pay us dividends. Anyways, we did all that. We can spread out a presence if we so desire. Would like to get some presence into here, but we have no adjacent sacred sites. The land number 2 is the hardest part of Scotland for Mud, because it starts at 6 damage. So whether it explores as a town or as an explorer, it goes beyond the 5 that Intractable Thickets can do. So it forces us to do a little bit of activity in the land. Okay. So let's see here. And so I say that all just to mean that we need to invest actions in the 2. We're probably going to ignore the 7 for now. Just let it build up, do its thing, whatever. If we happen to get the back-to-back, we have the Blight removal. But otherwise, all of my care and attention goes into land number 2. And so yeah, let's... well, we don't need to get presence in there yet. Let's do this. Reclaim. Let's get our sacred site out here just so we have something a little bit more central. Now we could do like a light call to light to bring this in, but if it explores again in the stage 3, then we accomplished absolutely nothing. So I'm considering doing a Ravaged Undergrowth to kill a city. If we did this, we get 1 damage plus 3 damage. So if it does explore, we kill 2 towns and we defend it with Intractable Thickets. So I think this is the path. And then next turn, yeah, we can, whether we double grow like top bottom or we G3, either way, we'll do some growth again next turn because we will not need the Ravaged Undergrowth for a turn. For blight removal purposes, that is. Vent. Replace and explore with a town inland. We're just going to do that in the 6 because the land is already shot. Makes no difference. Disease Strife doesn't ravage. We get to do a push. We're weaker in this land, so we're going to push out of it. Terror level 1, we get a Dahan movement. Okay. Do get a Dahan push here. So I'm thinking about going something like this, just to work my way towards land number 2. Ravage. Scotland 6. Build. Exploring the jungle wetlands. Okay, great. That is perfectly fine for it. This is one of those situations where we're going to get a triple Scotland 6 into a completely unrelated coastal. Thinking about using open shifting waterways here. We could also Ravage Undergrowth here. I know I talked about going here in the 2, but if we Ravage Undergrowth here, we could push a wild into this and then clear this land. And I don't know, pick up this guy as well, maybe. We could send 1, 2, and then this already has a wild here, so we could send all of them into land number 6. And then we still have several turns before it can come up again. And then doing open shifting waterways, we could go this way with it. But I think I'd rather go this way with it. Yeah, so let's do that. All right, so we're going to get a fear, turn that into a wild. Threshold adds an extra wild. They both get pushed, and then every wild gets to push and explore or town. So we'll go here and... Or do we go here because we're about to explore the coast? I think that's a lot smarter. So yeah, we'll do this, this, and this. Open shifting waterways. Let's go here. Actually, okay. We're going to go fear, come in, and do a damage first, and then we'll open shifting waterways for fear and a damage. And I don't think we ever added a second disease here. I know we haven't played any disease-adding powers. I think I just completely missed removing that disease, so that should be gone. All right, there we go. Time passes. Yeah, because of that, the ping and those 2 damage, I can now Intractable Thickets here in the 2, and life is good. So we are very well set up for the game. I thought I forgot the Exaltation of Tangle Growth. What did I forget? I should have forgotten you to that major. Golly. Some bookkeeping mistakes. Alright, so because I only have 2 cards, we're 100% just going to gain a new minor. And Gift of Power is basically just a strictly better version of this same thing. It gives us the extra moon element, which we actually do care about, and we don't have to pay energy to gain a card. So is that a thing that we actually want is, of course, an important question. We do have the option for blight removal in lands that are going to be taking blight over the next few turns. We do have small defend. This defend is too small for the type of things that Scotland likes to do. The benefit of taking Gift of Power is that we do get a second energy here. Or second damage. Since this is going to do 4 damage across 6, it's going to leave 2 HP behind. So we can do that 2 damage to clear this land. And that's really important. So we're taking the Gift of Power. And of course, it helps us scale up, since we did have to forget that card early in the game because of that event. Defend 5, and of course I'm going to add my card. I'm not going to be a fool. We're about to build in this land, so I need to make a sacred site there, so it just comes in as an explorer. Event. Another event. And this one, we definitely cannot pay for it, or else we're just going to blight here, so we are just going to kill one of these cities, not 2 of them this turn. That's fine. So, Dahan get extra HP, invaders get extra health. Beast dies, but there's no qualifying land. We have plenty of Dahan. 1 damage. Whoop, whoop. Actually, we can use it right there. Okay, Ravage, we're going to blight here, kill a city, Scotland 6, and then build in the jungle wetlands. And explore the coast. Now, the coastal card, you would have to add 2 towns and explore. However, in the case of wilds, if you have 1 wilds, you basically would take 2 towns and then, the wilds. And in this situation, we would just be forced to take 1 town. Okay, we got Gift of Power. Let's gain a minor. Blood Draws Predators is a way to get a little bit more damage. Since we do have the extra beast here in that slightly built up land, it's not possible for us to get a mount as though it's going to be either a sands or a jungles. Jungles is, of course, the big threat that we're looking at here. We're going to be reclaiming, defending that for 5. But yeah, getting the extra damage from the blood draws can be very helpful, especially because we're really good at doing like 1 damage at a time. So I think I'm going to take blood draws. And then like calls to like. Thinking I'm just going to go this way with it. Go here, go here. Since this is one of the lands that we could get on the next stage 2, and this one is not. So basically just working to solve the potential problems, clearing this out before it becomes an issue. And we do get 2 damage as well. So we could actually go for Fear, kill this, that'll push the Dahan, and now this land is solved. We don't actually have to do anything. So that whole defending this was all a lie. And look at that, we're in a beautiful position. This is really the only 1 land we have to worry about. We are primed and ready to go to defend here in the 2. I think it would be a good time just to do a little reclaim. And then after we see what comes up, we can then gain another major. So let's reclaim here. And I'll decide on the moon or the energy. If we need the moon to get extra damage, it's certainly worth it. But either way, the presence is going into land number 2. So we can play Untractable on the next turn. Yeah, Ravage Undergrowth is a very strong card. That's certainly coming out next. I mean, we could just do something like this. That just kind of Sits on a lot of potential value. Is there a way? Let's see. Yeah, there's no other way to get Earth, unfortunately. So we do need to draft an Earth. That's a good thing to keep in mind if we want to hit this max innate. And so, therefore, Moon gives us no marginal value. Let's go here. Fast phase, nothing. This is a good example of tempo, by the way. If you ever hear someone talk about tempo, being able to do literally nothing, play no slow cards, and just being like, I don't know, we're just going to like kill whatever happens to show up, that's a beautiful position to be in. Move a town 1 or 2 lands inland. We do get, there is no disease, and we get Dahan defend. We'll just move you up here. Strafe in a land with at least 2 invaders. Well, that was gonna be the pick. I guess we're gonna go here now. Okay, Ravage. Scotland 6. Build. Exploring the Sands. And we will add a town here. Okay. What to do, what to do. We got 2 damage off of our innates. That's probably just going to go here. We got the Ravaged Undergrowth, which we could use here, and then push Wilds into the 1 and to the 5 in order to solve this. Kick this down pretty well. Then the Intractable Thickets will solve here on the 2. So we'll turn that into 2 wilds, pushing them into adjacent lands. This is the thing that always happens with Scotland, by the way. Just you get 1 land that's just massive. Maybe we are going to just start hunting for a jungle's hunger. The jungle hungers. Let's gain a miner. Also, I explored this land. Oh, no, the wilds are just added now. I'm sorry. Woo! I almost undid that. None of these are too exciting to me. Maybe go for like a Flesh Rot. We did say that we need an Earth, so maybe a Promises of Protection. But I think this is just going to be forget fodder for the next major. And Open Shifting Waterways. Let's just get rid of this guy. We'll do this instead. Because this is a place to use our slow damage, since we're going to have some no matter what. Yeah. I just want to make sure that we really, aren't going to get completely blown out here. Okay, so we're going to do an Intractable Thickets. I think it's high time to just gain another major. Let's close this game out. If we're to do this, we're at 9, so we can't pay for it. Fiddlesticks. Trees Radiate is an interesting card. It really is just defend 6 and fear. But I mean, it's good. We have enough sun cards that we can likely threshold it. In fact, actually, if we do this instead of that, that second moon means that we will be able to threshold it. If we're to play this, and then this for the boom, 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 we will get 3 damage and defense. Well, I mean, it could be helpful there. Yeah, these other cards aren't really that interesting. This is basically just another Gift of Power. Nah. Alright, we need to get ourselves up to this 8, so I'm going to grow here. Give myself access at range 1. Oh, we need to play you and pay 3. Here we get 3 defend, here, and a defend 6. Denying the build in case an event does something. And for blood draws, I'm going to put that in the 5. Since we have 1 damage, I'm probably just going to ping the 5 and then take the beast. Event, Hardworking Settlers. All right. We can push 2 to Han, add a town to a land without a town, which I guess will wind up being the 5, and then immediately ravage in the 2. So let's go this way, add a town, ravage, and then, beast, kill things, but that never does. I've never seen that go off. Isolate a land. If buildings are present, skip all build actions. We could skip build actions here in the 5. That doesn't actually accomplish anything. It denies an explorer. Instead, we're going to isolate the 3, so that way we can't get hurt by the back-to-back explore. Ooh, free town kill. Thank you. Beast Disease 2 to Han removes this town. Great. Land that we're weak, we get to invest actions into it. We could also go here, but we have this Intractable Thickets, and, if we have a place to use it, then we don't need to reclaim. All right, Ravage. No Scotland 6. Okay, build. And then exploring the Sands Mountains. We got benefit from that ISO. Okay, and yeah, this is that moment, right? If we're in a winning position, we're probably going to win the game. And I would say we are quite clearly in a winning position here. This is beautiful. This is basically how I would script it. We're just one good major away from completely winning the game. Something that actually can do the damage. Ravage Undergrowth does not do sufficient damage to clear the 6. And Trees Radiate is fun, but, probably a little bit too small. We're just one big damage major, but even with those other cards, we very well could get there. Anyways, let's do... So we can do a Like Calls to Like, targeting the 6 to bring in you and you. Make this land a little bit more manageable. And I'm not going to worry about the Blood Draws Predators trigger. Let's just go for a fear and a damage and bring this Sacred Site in. Now we have Sacred Sites in both the mountains. And we grow, we can add one into the 5. Got our Intractable. So yeah, I think we're just going to go for a new major. Probably dumping the Trees Radiate. Unrelenting Growth. Is this card good? Is it good? Strangling Firevine. Oh, wow. That pairs very nicely with our other major. Okay. Fragments of Yesteryear is actually playable. Oh, golly. And we can actually afford it, too. Gosh. I'm afraid that if we take Fragments, we just aren't gonna have the fear to win. Oh, golly. Strangling Firevines. This plus the plant plus this means that we're good on the plant side. We have the water here, so all we would need is a water fire card. And then we get to threshold both majors at the same time. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That is expensive. I'm genuinely not sure if Fragments of Yesteryear could just, make us lose. But, I mean, considering the size and scale of our other majors, this is the only land that our other majors can't deal with. And this is, yeah, using this once. You know what? Let's try it. We're just going to go for it. We're going to learn about this together. And we're going to forget probably Like Calls to Like. Or Blood Draws. Actually, I need both of these suns for the Trees Radiate. Blood Draws. Okay, here. Fear and defend. Here we will go for a fear and defend for 5. Invader phase event. Add a explorer and town to a land with town. All right, well that's gonna vanish. Beast kill 2 explorers. And we can gain an energy and reclaim a card. I don't think it's going to stop us from just doing a full reclaim, regardless of what we pick. So let's Ravage. We're going to Scotland 6. We are going to build and explore the mountains, jungles. Is there any way that we can push stuff around? There's not, so let's just go for it. We don't remove Dahan, presence, tokens, and we don't add invaders back in, which is good because that actually has a town. So this just vanishes. Oh boy, goodbye. Okay, we got a fear and a disease. And then we got 2 fear and 2 damage. Two fear. Let's just come in and take 2 damage right there. No, actually, because we're gonna do this instead. That produces an extra fear. Yeah, because right now we're right at the edge of a Terra level 3 victory. So we can get rid of the city. If it wasn't for that fragments, we would just be going for a fear victory. This is ridiculous. Reclaim. Mountain jungles are all looking pretty. So we'll just go right here. Maybe disease gets turned off for the turn. Defend. Defend. We probably have to leave this one to chance because we don't have another defend. So let's go here. And we only have 2 energy left. We can't do a Ravaged Undergrowth. We just want to play any water card just so we can get some more damage. Let's go for this Flesh Rot. Three fear, and we can defend for 6. Fear, and then defend for 5. That's a very small problem, very likely to be dealt with. Event. Local Diaspora. So we have level 7. This actually solves the 7. So we can go for like a push, push, push. And then both beasts get to move. Go here and here. Push 2 Dahan from Blight to without Blight. Add a strife to a building. And it takes a damage per strike that it has. Ooh, that's good. That allows us to kill both the buildings here. And that 1 damage. Could matter if it explores, it now full clears. 1 damage per Dahan. One damage and defend 3. So now it's a full clear in the 5. Okay. Ravage the Sands Mountains. That's a Terra level 3 victory. There we go. So let's do a quick recap of those 3 keys to victory and how they applied to this game. So first up was scaling. We are quite good at it. We have fully cleared tracks by the end of the game. We're gaining 5 to 7 energy a turn, which is plenty for the majors, particularly since we drafted relatively cheap. So we were able to grow in power, and we didn't feel like the invaders were completely running us over. Yes, there is that 1 land that we got bailed out with on this, but you could also make the argument that major powers are designed to handle really big stacked up single lands. So if it wasn't this Fragments of Yesteryear, it would have been something else. We were offered the Strangling Firevines, which we can combine with this ravaged undergrowth, setting up tons of wilds around. This adds 2 wilds, this adds 2 wilds, so even with nothing else, that would kill all explorers and do 8 damage in the land, plus this. So we're looking at 11 damage in the land. That will make very quick work of everything that was in there. The second key that we had was managing the coast. As you can see, we've got all of our sacred sites here. That does a fantastic job of controlling the coast. It would come in as a town and then build up like so, and that's really easy for us to handle. We can just clear it with our innate, or pretty much any other card. A lot of miners can handle something this small. So we had this under control for really the whole game. The wilds was another thing. We prioritized pushing wilds into the coastal lands in order for us to control them better. And then last was timing the coastal card. And as we saw in the game, I made sure that everything was in its place right before the coastal card came up. We had tokens to set up. We had our presence to set up. We had Dahan to move to key lands, particularly land number 2 is where we are very weak. So we got all the pieces set up nicely, and that's why the game looks so effortless. Bailing yourself out of some horrible, dreadful situation is dramatic, and it makes you look cooler. It's like the Hollywood approach to being awesome. But, real, good, truthful strength comes from never putting yourselves in these horrible positions in the first place. And that's why I think Mud is the ace against Scotland. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have yourselves a glorious day.